Okay, Jim here, talking about the Ford Windsor 351 cylinder heads for the Miata. Okay, that's what this is. This is a recalculation of what needs to be done. Further inspection said that the heads were neglected. There was only 30,000 miles on this thing, like 32,000 something that was on the odometer, and I know that because the engine's all freshened up. It's really nice. So I started, let me tell you right now, these heads have been sitting underneath my buffer on the floor for 4 years, and then they sat in the back of the trunk of the Miata for about a year. So you can imagine how much crap was accumulated on it. So I started blowing them all off, seeing what I'm looking at. I know I took them off and they were, they were pretty greasy because the valve cover gaskets were all dried out since 1974. So everything was pretty dirty. So I knew that I had to clean them. So I started the other day cleaning them. Come to find out that the top of the valve train is like pristine. This is original. You want to call it a beehive? It's just a double spring. But that's it. That's about all I got to say about that. They're like new. There's like no excess wear on this whatsoever. Even the witness lines are all like new. You can see that. Okay, so these are original Windsor style Ford locks, keepers. Even the valve seals are like new. No cracks. They're still pliable. I'm not gonna use these, but if I had decided, I probably could just keep these and reuse these. Because actually I've never seen this before. Usually they're all cracked and dried out. So that tells you one thing only. Somebody bought the F100 truck that this came out of, brand new, drove it for a little bit, and something happened. I think it was due to one thing I'm going to discuss on this. This here particular engine, it requires the large spark plugs on this, which is an Autolite 42. I never checked the spark plugs. I just took it apart, left the plugs in the heads, and then 2 days ago I went to take these out, and I noticed that one's an RJ18, and then one was an RJY14, and then I found one what was it, an RY9C or something like that. The only one that was correct for this engine was that 9. And they were all champion plugs. So something must have happened, because that tells me that it wasn't firing, and that's probably why those 2 cylinders were all so fouled. And then, frustration set in years ago probably, and they left the air cleaner off and hood open, and I gave up and blah blah blah. Instead of putting the correct spark plugs in this type of engine, it wouldn't run correctly, because each resistor has a different heat range. This requires a high heat range, which is an Autolite 42, according to the manual in the motor's book, which is the plug is really big. It's got a thicker electrode. It can take more heat, blah blah blah. And there's no, I had not cleaned inside the chambers whatsoever on this. I just cleaned the top of the valve train, where the keepers and springs and the lifters, that's it. All inside these exhaust ports is like clean, except these 2 in the front, they had crap in it. And again, there was a 9 in this one, and the rest of what 14s and 18 champions, which is an underrated. Those are all for like 283. Even here's a fact. Just because the plug fits in the hole in the threads and seat pocket doesn't mean it's correct. So many people overlook that area. The orientation of the length between the electrode and between the two valves. I'll show you. It's you don't get very much room, and when you put a longer plug in there, this one, this intake valve came out of this one right here. This actually had something inside. I think it was a spark plug hitting it, or something. Something got in there because there's a couple of dents in here. Now, what I am doing is not buying new valves. There's nothing wrong with these valves at all. This had a little dent in it, but it's fine. It's cleaning up just fine. The valves are like new, as you can tell. So this one's clean, and that's what these videos are for. These videos that I'm going to put on about these heads are for a clean and resurface and reuse the existing valve and valve train assembly. There is absolutely nothing wrong with these. There is no wear whatsoever. These are standard Ford. There's no wear whatsoever on the ball, on the valve pocket where that rides up against the stem. No wear whatsoever. And in order to do this, you have to have resurfacing tools, which I own in my shop. That basically entails of a tool pulse grinder for a valve, which I own a Black & Decker. It's a full service station. It also requires a concentric dressing stone system, which I have. These seats are cut at 45 degrees. I will get in further depth with that. So I'm going to show a people process, because there's not a lot of people on YouTube showing anybody that. There's a couple of videos out there of the new style Quickway cutters, where it uses a set of carbide tooling cutters on like a piece of aluminum or whatever. But anyways, what I'm going to use with these is dressing stones, or the original rose stones for these. But these pockets are they're flawless. On the exhaust is a couple of pits, but the intakes are absolutely fine. But I'm still going to dress them all up. I have to recut the seats on all these. You can only do this one time. I recommend only doing it one time, since these only have 30-something thousand miles on them. They're so clean, except massive loads of deposits because the engine wasn't firing correctly. Let me show you an intake valve. I just wiped this off with a Scotch-Brite and to clean the face of it off, 220 sandpaper, double folded, sticky back, and I kind of just go along and basically like swirl polish that to want to get that fairly clean. It doesn't have to be perfect at this time, but you can see that those are really clean, but they still have to be dressed in the machine. So all of these are going to be recut, and then I'm going to relap them with a valve compound, just so I can get a nice smooth finish after such grinding. Then I'm going to reassemble this head, and then, well, that's about it. It's a brand new head at that point. Again, nobody is showing you this stuff. I'm also going to be porting the exhaust areas because they're extremely tight, and in these corners there's more material than there should be. There's so much material that the gasket's actually being cut off. So we want to open that up a little bit. So that's just a mild exhaust porting. I am not doing anything on the intake side because it's flawless. These heads are so well casted. I might smooth a little bit on the lower casting with like 180 grit. Not a Dremel, but it's a drum sander. It's very fine. And I got one that's like 200, so I might do that on the intake side just a little bit. But the exhaust, they have to be cleaned out. This is like it's like 3 corners, and then it's kind of like really bad right there. It's almost as round as this flashlight. So we're gonna clean these up, and that's gonna look a lot better. It's gonna feel and sound and run a lot better. But you can see that this valve right here is on the number 2. In this case, it's this way. So you can see how much deposits are on this. And this is due to not firing correctly. It is so thick. It's thicker than this blade. And here's the trick. A lot of people say, oh, let's just go get new valves. Again, there's nothing wrong with the valves. They can be recut only once, especially on this many mile engine. The recommendation is only do it once. I can't repeat that again. Or I can't repeat that many more times after that. Only one time you want to recut these. This is so thick in here, so you got to do whatever you got to do. Grind. You don't want to take a grinder to it. I use a razor blade. You want to get rid of this. It's really simple. Look how much stuff is on there. Can you see that? It is so thick that it just scrapes off. So basically, I'm going to do one head at a time. I'm going to set the machine up, which my machine's already set up for 45 because I did a early Hemi engine, and I had to recut those seats in the heads, and that runs beautifully. So once I scrape these all down, get rid of all the deposits, take the 220, get rid of all this. You're not going to hurt this, but you can see how much crud is on there. See, once I start getting it clean, the machine will actually recut the face of it, which I don't usually do, but sometimes I have to. I might have to do it on a couple of intakes. It will touch off on the edge to get that just squared, and then you can put a single, double, or triple angle valve job on that. I usually just do a single angle. That's what this engine requires. It's nothing fancy. All you're doing is touching off and just cleaning the surface, barely taking any material off, just until it's fresh and clean. Therefore, you lap it with some compound, and basically you reseat them. Put the valve train together, and that's it. I'm rambling on because, again, not too many people are doing this anymore. This is a lost art. I am going to show you in depth what the machine looks like in 2 seconds. 1, 2. Don't mind the camera. Okay, so that's my Black & Decker valve servicing machine. You have several mechanisms or mechanical aspects to engage or disengage. Basically, these are micrometers. You have one here, and one on the other side. That's for doing lifters. That stone right there is for doing lifters. Okay. This stone right here is your angle, your basically your flat surface, your touch off. This is the face, the valve, and this basically nibs off the edges or chamfers it. This is my clutch. You put the valve into it, you turn down to lock it. It's already set at 45 degrees on the vernier or caliper. This is how you disengage that and you move this. This is a little motor inside. Not only this has actually 4 motors on it. So you have the power motor for the head or the grinder itself. Then you have the motor for this. You have a motor inside here to move the table, which I don't use that. And then you have a motor in the back to pump fresh lubricant. I actually use a combination of oil and coolant to lubricate this diamond wheel, because you don't want that to not be lubricated. And this is all set up, ready to go. All I do is I just put this in there, and as the coolant comes out, deflects it, goes back down into the chamber pot inside here. Again, this is a Black & Decker valve refacer and servicing. They call it a super service system. And I'll show you what the concentric grinder looks like. On that servicing machine, you could actually touch off on your lifters to resurface them. Basically, you can do any hard surface that could be restored or reused. But we don't do all that. We just want to resurface this. On the Ford, a lot of people say that, oh, you're supposed to take the pins out and rethread these and put new threads in. I never have an issue with that. I usually just leave the hardened studs. If there was one broken, I would extract it, put a new one in. High performance applications, a lot of people, especially race world, they take these out. Who gives a crap about that? That stuff is it's all obsolete. It doesn't matter no more. Every time I hear or see somebody do that crap, they end up driving a vehicle for a little bit, and then a couple of months later or years later, you go by, you see them meet up with the same person again, and their car is dead. Okay, they're not driving them anymore. They put all this money and time into shit, into goofy stuff like threading dowel holes and put new pins. You're supposed to drill this and put a new dowel pin in so it doesn't move or rock with the rockers. They put roller rockers and stuff like that. All of that is like unnecessary. It really is. It's the engine came from the factory with engineered parts that they know work a long time. These things are bomb proof. As long as the oil holes are clean, the surfaces are nice and smooth, which they are. There's no wear. If there was wear, you replace it. This, again, is basically a low buck, high performance application done to spec, correctly done, with the tools that I have that are required to be doing this. And on the valve stem, on these hardened, they have this hardened tip on the valve stem. These things are flawless. There is like no wear whatsoever. I've already checked all of the guide pockets, and there is on this particular engine, you're supposed to be about 4 to no more than 7 thousandths of movement or end play. This has like 0 end play whatsoever. It's perfect. Again, see, I just resurfaced the valve just on the face, just with some sandpaper, not aggressive. Again, 220, and just rolling it back and forth on a piece of cardboard as my substrate and kind of just get rid of all the deposits. So now it's a brand new valve on the face. I'm going to chuck this up, touch off, reface the edge, recut it 45 degrees, do all the seat pockets, and you got a brand new valve system. And I didn't have to buy new valves. I didn't check the other head. Maybe I do have to buy a new valve. But again, why would I spend $200-300 on a new valve system when these came factory like this on a 351 head, flawlessly running from the factory? I'm not going to throw that stuff away. There's no point of throwing this stuff away. That's all I'm telling you. If you watch the video, if it's too long, if you think that I'm doing something inappropriate or wrong, let me know, comment, and maybe we can go forth with that. Again, I am not putting dowel pins in the pressed-in stud because there's no need to. If these things were done properly at the factory, they will never loosen up. I know that because I have a 66 one that I've serviced 3 times, and that stud won't pull out. And I know that they're pressed in. I know a lot of people do dowel these, and I don't need to. The pockets on these, the valve seal, I'm going to be talking about the valve seal. I'm going to be putting race valve seals instead of the umbrellas. I have a brand new set of umbrellas. I could just reuse these ones because they're perfect. These are already cut. I have a special cutting tool that I usually cut the guides down to put Vitin seals or nitrite race seals on across the board. Same seal all the way, they just snap on, and they're basically, it's a positive. This is a negative seal. So usually I put a positive seal on my race applications. My big block, my Hemi, I put big block Chevy Vitin positive valve seals on that. That is, you're picking up at least 5 to 8 more horsepower because you're doing that, because you're scraping the oil away faster than a normal umbrella seal, and you never have a smoking issue after that. It's they last a lot longer. So I'm just going to get on blah blah blah. So have a good day. I'm going to show you a couple other videos of me grinding the valves. Not every single one, because it would take hours upon hours. Just to clean this, it's, I got 4 or 5 hours into this, probably 2 days worth of work already, and it's not even cleaned. So I'm not going to do a ton of videos. So have a good day. Thanks. Don't subscribe if you want. That would be cool. But whatever. Let me know. Have a good day.